There's an old saying, dead men tell no tales. And a lot of criminals and murderers hope that this is true. Well, how about you? Do you think that people stop speaking when they die? Well, I'm sure none of us want to have a conversation with a zombie at the mall. I'm talking about a different way of speaking. A story, a conversation, a message, written in the contours of the muscles, their organs, the imprints, cuts, and bruises left on the bodies of the deceased. A story that only the forensic experts of the world are able to understand, to decipher. This is my passion, to understand, to be a part of that, to be a part of helping society, to make it a better place for everyone, to make everyone feel safe, to bring closure to the families of the victims, to lessen their grief. Now, you all might be wondering, what inspired a 12-year-old to start coming out on stage and talking about corpses? Well, let me start at the beginning. I was watching a K-drama series with my mom on the couch. It was about forensic science, as you may have guessed. The series was about a doctor who would not give up until he had found his goal, to properly solve the cases as he thought it should be solved. Now, everything was fine and good. The actors were decent, the scenes were pretty okay, until I heard this quote. Death is not the end. It leaves final stories in this world, and we forensic examiners are the last ones to hear those stories. Now, this quote inspired me. It made me think of forensic science in a whole different manner. At first, I thought it was just examining the evidence, find the guilty person, case closed, that's it. Now, I think about it as a pipeline, something to help the dead speak, something to go past their untimely ending and give them a chance to communicate with us one last time. And it interested me. It interested me quite a lot. It became my passion. And now, every bit of free time, I spend it looking at Reddit crime pages. I spend it looking at news articles. I spend it finding more and more information about this topic. And other than this quote also brought me back to when I was a child, when my father would tell me scary stories before bed. Now, every time I begged him to tell me a story, he would say it was late and I should just go to sleep. But I insisted it would help me sleep, so he would tell me the story. These stories left a profound impression on me. It made me think, why did this have to happen to this person in the story? How could this have been avoided? How will we protect the people in the future from these bad events happening to them? One fact from the stories that really stuck with me was that the monks and the healers of the old times, they would look at the dead bodies of people and use the knowledge, the anatomy, and anything that they got from those dead bodies to treat the other living patients. So, as I've said before, I did my research. In my spare time, I would look at news articles, I'd read books, I'd look at podcasts, I'd even go on YouTube and look at some other things. All of the new updates on crimes and the technology that's being used to solve them. One example of an interesting case that I found was a case called the case of Enid Whittlesey. The case of Enid Whittlesey was a case of an old woman who'd been murdered by over 27 stab wounds in multiple areas of her body. Now, what the police found at the crime scene was a partial palm print on the side of the door, Some blood drips on the left side of the stairs going down from the second floor. A dusty footprint on the piano by the window, with the window being forced open. And the cupboards and the closets all around the house being ransacked and pulled open, with everything valuable taken out. Now, the police presumed that this was intentional. It was a murder. It was a thief that had gone into the house and had awoken its owner and then murdered that owner. Now, at the time, there was no technology to help solve this case. They didn't have a computer system to help identify the DNA and the evidence they found. So, this was left as a cold case. It was put in a drawer and forgotten about for over 17 years until a new technology was developed. It was called AFIS, or the Automated Fingerprint Identification System. Now, AFIS had access to the whole database of DNA fingerprints, considerably reducing the time that would be spent finding the killer. So, the police revisited the case. They brought the evidence back out, they put it through the computer, to no avail, until one particular piece of evidence proved useful. The palm print, or more correctly, the partial fingerprint. The partial palm print was a misinterpretation of police evidence. It was actually a partial fingerprint, as I've said before. So, they knew this fingerprint belonged to a man named Carl Stewart. They brought him in, they brought his spouse in, and they interviewed both of them. Carl, on one hand, kept shifting his story around the evidence that the police provided, trying to make it seem plausible. His spouse, on the other hand, openly admitted that her husband didn't care for the elderly, particularly did not care for the elderly, in fact. And so, after this interview, they were sure they had found a guilty party. They brought him to court. The judge sentenced Carl Stewart to a full life in prison without a chance of parole. That was it. The case was closed. This shows how forensic evidence can be an absolute game changer. It can be the tipping point in court. We all have to admire the vigilance of the criminal justice system for not giving up on this case, even though it took over 17 years to solve. This is all built on the passions of the people in that justice system. Their passion to find justice. Their passion to help the people around them and make society a better place. This is why I want to take my part in that system too. This is why I'm building my passion for the future, to make myself ready. Now, you know all about the criminals being condemned and being executed, like in this case. But there's another side to this. It can also help the innocent, the people in the system, make sure that the innocents are not being accused as well. I'm sure most of you are familiar with death row. And according to the Death Penalty Information Center, over 200 people have been exonerated from it since 1973 due to a lack of forensic evidence. Forensic evidence that contradicts the sentence that they had been given. Imagine how happy those 200 people would have been to escape death, all because of forensic evidence. This is why I want to be a part of this. This is why my passion leads me towards this. Now that you know the importance of forensic science, let's imagine a world without it. Imagine the chaos, criminals and murderers running amok, stealing everything, murdering anyone they like. And we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. We wouldn't know who murdered who. We wouldn't know what item belonged to who. Imagine the grief of the families of the victims, not ever knowing what happened to their loved ones. Imagine being locked up for life for a crime that you didn't commit, due to a lack of evidence. This sounds pretty horrible, doesn't it? Well, it does. And lastly, after I've said all this, after I've explained why my passion is to be a part of the justice system as a forensic scientist, I'd like to turn to you. What is your passion? If you don't have one yet, it's okay. But it can be anything, any inspiration that helps you to find your passion. It can be a tiny spark that blazes a new trail in human history, that contributes to human society in a good way. It can be anything. For me, it was the bedtime stories and the quotes and sayings I found in TV shows that helped me to find my passion for forensic science. For you, it can be something similar, or it could be not. It doesn't matter how small it is. Remember, one of the greatest revolutions in human history began with an apple falling on a certain person's head. Dig down deep in your heart. Find something you love. Consider it as something you love and turn it into a passion. Something that will help all of us. Something to help us to live in comfort. To help us all feel safe and nurtured. Isn't that what everyone deserves? It can be in the most unconventional places, the most unexpected places, like mine. It can be anything. So, start today. Start finding your passion. You don't know how long you've got left. Like Enid Whittlesey. She didn't deserve to die. Start today, and you won't regret it tomorrow. Thank you.